Guys, welcome back to Vince-Vell Customs. I had an interesting PM last night. Somebody asked me, how do I start airbrushing? What do I need? Can you put me in the right direction? I send people to clubhouse.net, garagekits.us, some statue form information. Basically, to start airbrushing, if you really want to dive into it, I tell everybody, go on eBay, go in your collection and find a bust, a statue, something that's either broken or something that's really cheap. Like sometimes you go on eBay and you can find like a $15 statue or bust, and you could just buy it, strip it, and start painting it. For less than a actually brand new statue, a full-size statue, you can get yourself an airbrush kit off of eBay. And now when I say kit, I mean you can get yourself an automatic shut-off compressor that looks like this, and it comes with a cheap airbrush. Sometimes they're no-name airbrushes, sometimes they're Badgers, Paches. Look at different kits on eBay. I think they run anywhere from maybe 70 to 150 bucks, and that's less than the statue. So if you got cash to blow on a statue and you want to start airbrushing, buy yourself a kit. Now, this isn't exactly what you'll find on eBay. This is old. This is like my old compressor back in college from 97, 98 when I started airbrushing. My cousin, she was doing nails, and after she quit that and stopped doing it, she was going to throw this away, so I took it. It's very noisy, it shakes a lot, and I'll show you that in a second. But if you want to start airbrushing, it's a good thing to start off with. Now, the airbrushes are cheap. They're not your, $150 airbrushes. They're probably like, $50, $60 airbrushes. Some of the no-name ones, you could probably find cheap parts for them on eBay as well. So basically, for that amount of money, you can actually start airbrushing. And actually, if you're going to buy a brand new statue for $300, for less than $300, you could probably get yourself situated to start airbrushing. So basically, we'll start off with this. This thing is called an automatic shut-off compressor. Very noisy, annoying as all hell. You don't get a steady stream of air coming out of the thing because it's kicking on all the time. And I don't like them. I started off with it, and as I really got into it and everything started evolving for me, I went on to a bigger compressor like this one here, and that's $400 alone. But that has a tank, it's quiet, I get a steady stream, and that's, for what I do, that's what I need. If you want to start off just to get the feel, you get one of these. So I'm going to kick it on, and you're going to see how loud it is. And it's very shaking, so it's something you would have to leave on the floor. If you leave it on the table and you're airbrushing next to it, it's going to be shaking. You don't want that. So we kick this on. It's loud, and as you can see, it starts almost moving. The newer ones have suction cups at the bottom of the feet, so you can actually suction cup it to something and it'll stick. Now, you can't hear it, but there is air leaking from this thing, and that's why these things are annoying, but it's on again. So when you start airbrushing, I'll hit the gun and air coming out, you'll see. As you can see, very loud, shakes a lot. It's annoying turning this off because, but they come with a valve that you can lower the pressure higher and all that. It comes with a water release valve if you get a lot of moisture. If you're working in the house, in a decent area, you're not going to suck up a lot of moisture. If you're doing it in a garage or maybe a basement, you might suck up a lot of moisture, and you'll have to hit the valve to get the moisture out because it will fill it up. Now, as far as the airbrushes, there's many different kinds that you'll find. This one right here is a Badger LG, I think. It's like a nail brush. What I'll do is I'll set up a thing and I'll show you how to take it apart and what you can expect from one of these. So that's basically a kit you can start off with. Now, as far as paints, you may ask, you don't want to drop a lot of money on paints. And I understand that because paints are expensive. Tamiya's, garage kits, colors, they're all great paints. But if you're going to buy a bunch of them, you get them, and then all of a sudden, I don't like airbrushing, what am I going to do with all this stuff? So basically, I think I tell people, if you want to start off with it, go over to Michael's AC Moore. You can get yourself some airbrush golden paints or Createx. These are the more common ones you'll find. You can, maybe just start off with a couple colors, like get yourself a Hulk bust, maybe a Spider-Man bust, or or even a female bust, you know, anything that you want to start off with, and just go by those colors for that bust. Even if it's a female character but you want to paint her green, just buy a couple different greens, you know, whites and stuff, and you don't have to get the big bottles like these. They come much smaller, you know, something like these, you know, a little bit smaller, and you can just kind of get a feel for airbrushing, see if you like it, see if you want to go further with it. Now, as far as cleaning the airbrush, you don't have to go and buy the airbrush cleaner bottle that's like 20 bucks. You don't have to waste the money. Get yourself a container, a bottle like this. This is just an old Cratex from years back I've always been using. You put in about 20 to 30% Windex, and you put the rest water. So this way you got yourself a nice cleaning solution for your airbrush and the paints. It's a cheaper way than wasting money on all that other stuff. There's a little bit more technical stuff as you start to get in. If you decide you want to get into airbrushing and you want to do more, then you got to get into the more technical stuff, upkeep, the proper tools, and I can get into a little bit of that later in the video. But so as far as a cleaning solution, this is what I use, and that's what you can use too. So that's pretty much a cheaper way. So basically, as the difference between the compressors, as you can see, this sucker's very loud, whereas, see, there's no on and off switch on these either. You just plug it in and it just kicks on. So that's why they're pretty annoying. But if you kick this one on, now the $400 compressor is a lot different because, you know, I'm getting a nice steady stream. There's a tank. It'll kick on once it starts emptying. Takes a little while because there's a lot in there. See, I got a nice set. See, there you go. It's filling up the tank. Very quiet. It's not jumbling. And that's the difference between a $400 compressor and something you can get off of eBay that's pretty cheap. So, that's pretty much the difference between those two. Those are some paints you can start off with. You know, as you if you decide you really want to get into it, you can, you know, start getting into the primers, priming a statue, you know, different paints, sealing, and all that stuff comes later, but just to kind of get into it, you can. Now, Wonderfest in Kentucky, and last year was the first year for Jersey Fest, they have airbrush classes. If you're in the areas on the East Coast, this is something to look into. For $300 and some, I think, you can get yourself a really nice Badger airbrush. You get a better compressor than this, but not quite this. It's like a middle grade one. Get some paints. You get about 8 hours of hands-on class learning from Saul, Jim Capone, and a couple other guys in the hobby, where you sit there for 8 hours and you just paint up a garage kit, and you just learn the airbrush, learn how to use colors, and just get a feel for everything. And then after the class, you walk home with that airbrush, the compressor, a bunch of paints, and a kit. I suggest if you're in the areas, look into it. It's a one-day class. It's great. It's phenomenal for each place you want to go to. So basically, that's what you can start off with. This is how you can get going, just get a feel. Like I said, if you do it and you like it, you can just keep going. If you don't like it, you really didn't drop a hell of a lot of money, and you could probably just put it on Craigslist or resell it on eBay or give it to a friend. So you got a couple choices without, you know, some people think, oh, I want to airbrush, but I don't want to spend thousands of dollars. You're not going to spend thousands of dollars unless you really start getting into it. And even then, you probably won't spend thousands. I mean, if you really, really wanted to get into airbrushing, you can get yourself a like $400 compressor. You get yourself basically like an Iowa to airbrush like I have here, probably for about 150 to 200, and you could buy yourself a bunch of paint. So probably under, you know, maybe $1,000, you can actually get yourself a really nice system. But then, you know, if you want to get an airbrush booth and go on from there. So it's not really like you're spending thousands. It's just that you're going to lose money as you're learning how to upkeep the airbrush, because needles bend, and I'll get into that in a second, and parts and clogs and problems. But once you learn and get through that learning curve, you won't even need to worry about that stuff anymore, and you can make an airbrush last forever before you have to repair it. Alright, so basically here's the airbrush that you might be getting with your cheap kit. I will call it the poor man's kit on eBay, just for fun. Yeah, because, you know, it's a good way to start. So you got your airbrush. You may be a little intimidated. You might be a little scared. What do I need to know? What do I, what's going to happen when I get it? So basically, the most common thing is your needle. The needle is inside your airbrush. It comes out. As you see, there's some paint on this one. This is where you get problems. The needle either gets clogged or the tip gets bent. Now, when the needle's inside the head assembly, it sticks out a little bit in here. Now, if you get something caught in there, or if you go into a statue and then bam, you hit it, you bend the needle, you're screwed. The needle is, replaceable, and it could cost anywhere from maybe $5 to $20, depending on the airbrush, where you're getting the part, all that stuff. So you got to be careful with the needle. That's the common thing that people mess up. Now, when you pull out the needle, you get paint on it and stuff, and then there's paint in there and you clean it. But now when you put the needle back in, some people have a habit of jamming it back into there. You don't want to do that because there is a head assembly nozzle in here. And as you can see, I have a graveyard of parts here from in the past of using stuff. So as you can see, let's find one. Okay, here you go. So this, let's see if we can get in on this one. Okay, so as you can see, that right there is your nozzle. Now, if you jam the needle in there, you split this nozzle, the tip of it splits like that, and therefore paint and airflow is not going to come out correctly, and then that's messed up. So as you can see with all these parts in the past, I've screwed these up. Now, I've kept these because I've made Frankenstein airbrushes off these in the past, but I just kept them just to keep them. Like a head assembly, a whole entire head assembly, if you need to replace it, is like, I think like maybe $20 some on this one. I don't really remember. So, gotta be careful with that. Now, if you're gonna clean out the needle, you clean this out, you pull out the needle, right? You gotta be very careful because some of these needles you can actually jab your finger or your nail and it's bent. The tip will bend on you, and you don't want to bend that. So basically, to tear it in the airbrush, you pull this piece off. And this right here is your spring. See, this is the spring that's pushing it back. That's the dual action. This right here is your lever, and this right here is like the arm. And then these are your head assemblies. Now, like I said, certain brands do different things, and bigger airbrushes have different head assemblies, while the smaller detail ones have different ones. So that's pretty much the... So basically, if you have to clean out your airbrush, you can pick up stuff on eBay, these things, and then you can, these little airbrush cleaners, you can actually dip it into this stuff called Winsor Newton Brush Cleaner Restore. You can actually spray this stuff through, but be careful with this stuff. This stuff can actually bring paint back to life, and it could ruin the statue, or, so if you spray through your airbrush, be careful. But if you take off the head assembly in there, you can use this stuff to kind of clean. So that's a little bit more detailed thing if you ever have a major cleaning problem. If you get a Badger airbrush, I suggest you go for Badger to start off with, kind of, because if something goes wrong, you can actually send it to Badger and they clean it. So that's pretty much what you need to expect. Make sure you have all your parts. Some of these Badger have Teflon pieces, little white Teflon pieces that go around here. I don't have any in here at the moment, but it's in here and I don't want to take that apart. You don't want to lose the Teflon pieces, because if you lose the Teflon, the airflow doesn't go correctly, and then there's a problem. So, that's basically the airbrush, torn down. Give you an idea, just gives you an idea what to expect. To put it back together, you put this piece in here first. Now, I'm not saying every airbrush is like this, but this gives you a general idea. Make sure the piece isn't like this. Make sure it's like this, so this way the airbrush, the needle goes through it. And you pretty much put that in there, screw this back in, and then you can put your needle back in. Like I said, make sure this is screwed down all the way. Make sure everything's being pushed down correctly. If it's not, and then when you get that going, make sure you put the needle in gently. Don't jam it in there. And that's pretty much what you need to expect from an airbrush starter kit. So basically, go out, get yourself something fairly cheap. and start airbrushing. If you like it, start doing more research on which better airbrush, better compressors, what can I afford, what can I afford, how far I want to go with it. And if you don't like it, you really didn't spend that much money. So hopefully this helped you guys out.